South Central LA was like every other hood across America in the 80s. It was being ravaged by crack, literally ravaged by crack. Freeway Ricky Ross, he is a frequent guest on Vlad TV. This was a guy who was arguably, if not the biggest crack dealer in LA at that time. Was his a name that you can remember being a young boy ringing out? Obviously, I'm sure you guys had never crossed paths, but did you hear that name often in your hood?
I did not, and here's the reason why I believe that, because I was in the hood, but a lot of the sensibilities and things that listen, bro, Mr. Jordan, I was more afraid of Mr. Jordan than I was of the Crips. you know what I'm saying? Like, I had a dad at home who would put the fear of God in me. So, like I said, I think that I was shielded in a different way because of the church. I didn't have the time to be able to run in certain circles and do what normal kids would be doing. There wasn't like football programs in AAU back then, because didn't nobody have like parks that had football stadiums for kids to play in. They had like baseball, because you could put some diamonds there, and maybe a swimming pool that nobody hardly ever used. But I wasn't familiar until later in my life, about his life and his journey in the contribution of what, he added to that game. I was a church kid, man. I literally was shielded from a lot of that. And so I think Cube has said it before, the difference between being initiated and being affiliated. It was like, I was affiliated because I was around it, and because a lot of the people that I knew, because of the Crips that were near where my church was, all throughout my walkings back and forth to Audubon Junior High School or where I went to school, it was kind of like, yo, he's cool because he's Sonny and Delois' kid. You know what I mean? He's from 4th Ave. Like, don't mess with him. Like, he's cool. And so everything from, the 2-finger rolling 60s handshake, all that type of stuff. Like, I was one of their guys that was like, he's cool, but never close enough to actually get, pulled in.
Got you. You spoke about church in great detail. Obviously a big part of your life. Is this what, because some of the most prolific singers and vocalists, they come out of the church. You mentioned that you were on the piano, so obviously you play instruments, but is this where you got your love for singing, or was it somebody in your family that you wanted to emulate or said, boy, you can sing, and encouraged you to go in that direction?
Well, Prez, the church was like the minor leagues. It was like the farm, if you will. It's like it was the training ground or the schooling for musical sensibilities, for ad libs, for learning how to flow, for learning how to change keys and modulate. Like, I didn't go to like a great school for music. Like, I got my ear for music from pastoring and being underneath musical leaders. The pastor of my church at the time when I was growing up is a guy named Richard Stubbs. Richard Stubbs was a cousin to Levi Stubbs from the Four Tops. So he was a very musical pastor down from Mississippi. And so I learned how to play by ear. I learned because of the traditional style of pastor call response, that when the preacher stood up and said, I feel something going on, I knew how to go to the piano and go, and so we were trained as gospel musicians. And quite honestly, a lot of musical people that you will talk to, they had that same type of upbringing where, because of gospel and the feel of R&B that was there but was cloaked, you know what I'm saying, in holiness, was that thing that was instilled in me. So just from that standpoint, I was listening as a kid growing up to all types of different music. I loved 80s music, bro. Like, I am a student of Cyndi Lauper, and I could hear the difference between Lionel Richie with the Commodores and Lionel Richie. You know what I'm saying? I knew there were different things and sensibilities and groups like Brick and every, like, my mind is like an overload right now because I'm thinking The Police, Phil Collins, like I got all these different styles of music with Prince and Michael Jackson and all of that. But I'm in church where church would tell me that's the devil's music. This is God's music. That's one of the biggest conflicts I've had my entire life, bro. And a lot of other artists have navigated that same thing. How can you do both? And the church will tell you can't. For years, that was the story. You can't do both. You are either secular or you are saved. There's no in between. And so that was my probably one of my biggest struggles coming up musically because Prez, I felt God in music that wasn't gospel music. And a lot of people will argue that, people that don't understand it. The example I always give is my favorite album of all time, Stevie Wonder, Innervisions. I know every song back and forward. And one of the songs on that album, to this day, I get goosed every time I listen to it, a song called Vision in My Mind. I can see the album cover and everything.
I know the song very well.
Incredible song, right? People hand in hand, you know, all those different things. It was such a come together type of song. But the dope part of that song, he gets to the bridge and he says, I'm not one that makes believe. I know the leaves are green. They only change to brown when autumn comes around. I know just what I say. Today is not yesterday, and all things have an ending. But what I like to know is, could a place like this exist so beautiful? Or do we have to find our wings and fly away to the vision in our mind? I got a blind guy saying, I'm not one who makes believe. I know that leaves are green. They only change to brown when autumn comes around. And I felt God in those words, but I had a church that was saying at the time, yeah, but God can't be in that. So I suppressed it and I just kind of hid it. And then we would be in church and, you know, we would just be playing the gospel music, playing the, you know, it's hilarious because when I think about this, me and Shep Crawford, who's a award-winning Grammy-nominated producer as well, he was on the organ while I was on the piano, and we grew up together. So like those hit records with Deborah Cox, and we'll get probably to some of that later. We did those things together, but we started out as 10 and 11-year-old kids sitting across from each other in a church playing piano and organ, looking over at each other, feeling where the choir is going to go, feeling where the pastor is going. And, you know, as in you know, whether it was victory is my dun, 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 victory is my dun, dun, victory today is my dun, dun,
dun, Montell. Take them to church.
Dun, 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 dun. Watch this. Victory today is my dun, 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 dun. That was Prince. But because I'm listening to Prince and I can't do that, but I could throw it in there in church a little bit. And we'd be looking at each other like, woo, we just got Prince in church. We just got James Brown in church. We just got Michael Jackson in church. And we felt closer to God through music, man. And not just through gospel music.